Hi, my name is Hannah Anderson, and I am the author of All That's Good, Recovering the Lost Art of Discernment. And I just wanted to jump on and welcome you to the conversation and give you a little bit of background about why I wrote it in the first place. The book came out in 2018, October of 2018. And so that means that I was writing it the end of 2017, early 2018, which after this year feels quite honestly like a lifetime away. What I've found interesting though is the things that kind of motivated me to write it in the first place are more relevant than ever. And I don't know that that's a good thing, but I do know that I'm really glad you're reading this book in this moment. When I started thinking about this topic of discernment, it came to me in a lot of ways that most of my writing does, which is I'm wrestling with something personally and I'm trying to sort through it. And writing is the process by which I kind of figure out what I think, and I learn, hopefully, what the scripture thinks about a subject. And so I remember back in 2016, early 2017, when I was preparing to write All That's Good, that I felt completely overwhelmed by the amount of information that was coming at me, especially because of the digital age. I mean, I could sit in my kitchen, open up my laptop, and just be flooded with the news, not just from our neighborhood, community, our nation, but from around the world. And not only could I have all of this news, I also had 100 different explanations of how I should think about that news. I also had the capacity to research all kinds of data, or probably more things than I knew what to do with. And in the midst of that kind of information overload, I also found that I didn't necessarily have the tools for sorting through it. You know, I tell folks that I don't think we're any more gullible than any other people in history. I don't think we're foolish or we lack common sense necessarily. But I do think that in this moment in time, we are not equal to the amount of information that's coming at us. We don't have the skills to be able to sort through what is credible or what should I pay attention to. And not even what's credible, but what should I give my time to? More practically, what should I be worried about? Whose crisis should have my attention? Where should I be placing my energy and my focus? And I realized that the way I had been equipped to approach these kinds of questions, the way I had learned to sort through information, wasn't necessarily sustainable. And I needed to go back and relearn what the scripture said about discernment. Now, if you've been in the church for any length of time, or maybe just in broader religious spaces, you've probably heard people talk about discernment, but you may have heard them speak about it in terms of staying away from evil, or someone's really discerning because they can find all the things that's wrong with something. They can spot all the brokenness. But what was interesting to me is when I began to study the scripture and how the scripture spoke about discernment, it spoke about being able to discern what is good as much as knowing what was wrong with something. It spoke about being able to discern what is excellent and what is the good and perfect will of God, as Paul puts it in Romans 12. And so right from the start, my perspective on discernment and how I approach the question got turned upside down. I wasn't any longer looking to develop necessarily critical thinking skills or the way to critique something and see the brokenness. I needed to learn how to see the goodness that God had built into the world. I needed to learn how to recognize those things that reflected his character, that reflected his intentions for the way we would live as his image bearers and in community as believers. And so that's why it's titled All That's Good. I think sometimes the title and the subtitle kind of throw people off guard because it says All That's Good, Recovering the Lost Art of Discernment. And I did that on purpose because I hope as readers read the book that you will kind of question the way you've thought about discernment in the past. I hope that as you read through it, you'll gain a vision for the goodness of God in the world, that we are to be pursuing and seeking after those things that reflect God's nature. And ultimately, that's why I centered the book around Philippians 4:8. This is the passage in Paul's letter to the church at Philippi where he tells them to pursue or to seek or to think about whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, and whatever is commendable. This isn't a list that just catches or filters out all the bad things. This is a call to actively run after and seek and discover those things that look like God. To run after and to fill our minds with those things that reflect his nature. And in doing so, that our minds would be transformed. That the kinds of things that we love, that the kinds of things that we want and desire would be shaped by the nature of God. And so ultimately, we would become discerning people the same way a chef becomes a discerning chef, someone that has a discerning palate, or a great artist develops a discerning eye, or maybe someone who's a musician develops a discerning ear. That through training and experience, we would come to have our sensibilities developed and changed so that we can spot his goodness in the world. I think there is no other conversation that's as significant for us as we try to navigate the sheer amount of information that comes at us every day. So I hope you will enjoy and ultimately that you will find all that's good.